Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Chris McMillan. I'm an analyst with the City of Fayetteville. This presentation is on security awareness. As you see from the title there, it's a Security Awareness Roundtable. So this is going to be short on PowerPoint slides and long on our folks up at the front here who have agreed to talk about the various security awareness programs in their cities or counties. Lisa Jones is from Wake County, gives us a wave there. Owen Squires, City of Albemarle. Chad Coble. And Robert. Okay. And Adam. Anybody know Adam Oates was supposed to be part of this? Anybody know Adam or know? Because I never got a response back from him whether he was going to join us today or not. Okay. So here's the way it's going to work. I'm just going to ask each one of our presenters to take about 5 minutes, talk about what they're doing as far as security awareness goes in their organization. We know that security is a big issue for anybody that works in IT, and probably the weakest link in any of our security in the organization are the actual people that work for us, right? Technology is pretty good. The technology typically is pretty easy, but like anything else we do, it's the people that are hard to deal with. And so that's what we want to talk about today is how do we put a program in place so that our people are aware of what they need to do to keep our organizations and our data and our systems as secure as possible. So Lisa, if you want to jump in and start,
Sure.
Go right ahead.
So with Wake County, and I'll start this off by explaining first off, I've been with Wake County now for about 8 months. One of the challenges that I was given walking in the door was to truly develop a security awareness program for Wake County. And that's not to say that they haven't been doing security awareness training up to this point, but actually turn that into a full program that covers more than just the training aspects. So currently what we're doing, we have CBT type courses that we're offering through our learning management system. We have about an hour-long course that we require all users to go through at hiring, so within the first month of being hired. As it stands today, our policy only requires that they go through that course once every 3 years. But in a number of the audits that we've gone through in the recent months, we have at least reached an agreement that that's going to be reduced to a much lower number. But what we're finding is that with the computer-based training, it's a little bit, what's the best way to put it? Challenging, we call it challenging. I think the term I really want to use is it tends to be boring, and you have a tendency for users to sit there and they'll have it playing in the background and doing something else on the side, and okay, they stop talking, that means I'm supposed to take a test or something. So we're looking at opportunities to improve the way that we're delivering that training material and focusing on getting that to the point where it is more frequent. And I guess to carry on with that, I'll let Robert actually tell you about the history of getting our learning management system in place and actually going through the initial setup for that security awareness training program.
So I kind of started, or a part of the team that helped start the security awareness training. So I'm the old, she's the new, she's going to transform it and take it into the next dimension. But we had an external audit in May of '09, and it just revealed a plethora of things we need to improve. During that time, we realized security awareness training was one of those, in addition to many other things, HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, etc. So we actually formed a RMCT, Information and Risk Management Core team, of which now Lisa chairs, and a component of that was security awareness training. So we began to shop it out. What would it take to bring that in-house, stand something up from scratch? Believe it or not, it's pretty expensive. You're looking at FTE, somebody that's rich in content development. So we actually had it hosted. We chose Inspired e-learning. They did us a good job. But we've quickly outgrown that platform, and we're going to be transitioning into a new platform pretty soon. So what we chose to do was take their stock canned security awareness slides and edit them and put the Wake County twist on it to reference our policies and the things we were seeing on our network from our users. So again, it was better than nothing, but it's definitely going to be improved going forward to be more whole encompassing type program than just CPT.
I'm Chad Coble from Stanley County. We are recent into this endeavor with going our security awareness training. The impetus for change for us is we've been hyper-focused on security lately, as I'm sure much of you guys have been. We're a very small county, so resources are thin. One of the things I'm really looking at and trying to aggressively pursue is implementing the critical security controls from CIS. There are 20 controls. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with that. Of course, part of that is a security awareness training program. We looked at a few options. We ended up going with the SANS VLE, the virtual learning environment that they offer. It was a pretty good fit for us. They maintain the content. Of course, it was all hosted off of our systems. Really, all we need to manage is the users, which sometimes becomes a little bit cumbersome. But as far as having to maintain the content of the system, that all falls back on the SANS company themselves, which turned out to be really, really good. We actually roll ours out in quarters. We roll out a few videos each quarter, 3 to 4 to 5. We try to be very careful not to get too granular with our organizational structure of how we roll it out. We try to put as many employees inside of one policy as we can so that it will alleviate some of the burden of the management. And that's actually worked out pretty good. We kind of break it down with most standard county employees, and then we have those that are like in the medical field, EMS, health department, that need HIPAA training, because those videos are in there as well. It's not just tech-oriented training. And we've broken it down that way, so we've only got about 3 OUs, not counting one we carved out for Owen at the city, which kind of leads me, that was one thing, there was a minimum seat requirement on the SANS training of 1,200. We only have about 500 employees, 580 employees at Stanley County. Owen has about 300. Albemarle is the county seat for Stanley County. Of course, Owen and I work well together. We've known each other for years. So saw an opportunity there. We conversed about it, and he was on board with it. We carved out an OU for him to be able to partake in that training as well. And he can apply his own policies. He's got granular control over what he needs to do for his organization. So there's nice separation of concern with going with that, and we get a little bit more bang for our buck because it's the same cost and get us aiding in 2 different organizations. We've gotten very good response back out of it. We don't really have any formal measures in place yet because it is kind of new for us. We didn't have any trouble at all getting our upper management to buy into it. Of course, my county manager is awesome. He is very tech-oriented and pretty tech-savvy, and he realizes the value of things like this. And of course, he knows, and he and I have had many, many conversations about the security aspect of things. So he's very oriented to that. So he gave me 0 pushback. We implemented the program, we had some funds in the budget. As far as the end user goes, we've actually heard a lot of positive feedback out of that. A lot of things that people would email me or chat me and say, gosh, I didn't know that. I mean, that seems so simple that I should have known that, but I didn't. Actually, some people were saying thank you. Because some of the training also is not just business related or business oriented. There's a lot of training in there for the personal side of life too. And just about general computer awareness and security awareness, even when they're browsing or doing banking at home. And that was one part of the package that with SANS that we liked very much. But so far so good. I'm judging right now whether to continue rolling it out in quarters because it puts a little bit of work back on us trying to maintain that. The good thing is with SANS, the max video length is like 4 minutes, and most of them are in the 1 to 2 minute range. So that's worked out very, very well as far as the attention span that those guys are talking about. And so far I haven't had any problem. I take a little 3-question quiz at the end of it, and SANS updates the contents every year. So even though the video titles may stay the same, the content does change so that it's more apropos to the time that we're in. And they add videos and take away videos as they see fit. Another thing about the SANS is they are an accredited institution, So each of our users does get one CD. It's not much, but they do get one CD towards professional education. So far so good. It's worked out really, really well. I think it's actually had an impact. Again, I don't really have any formal metrics to state with that, but so far I've had a lot of good feedback from our users. We have not branched into doing the phishing emails, which the Securing the Human product does encompass. We just haven't purchased that yet. We're going to kind of get settled in the program and see how it goes.
This is one of those things that NCGLISA does that I like a lot, and I'm curious to see feedback on this. We've got two widely different versions of what's going on. Wakes is comprehensive, and with Chad, what we've been able to do in Stanley County and in Albemarle is more entry level. And I'll take that one step further, and this is what I'm hoping to learn from you guys. Brief history. 6 years ago, IT within Albemarle was just some people inside the finance department. And I came in, one of the requirements was to make it a standalone department. One of the issues, though, was there was zero documentation on anything. So what we've had to do is work through that. And my point regarding security is that there was no education component within the city, so we've had to start suggesting that. And so basically, we've spent the last few years trying to document and finalize the technology pieces. And with Chad's doing this with Stanley County, that was a good jump start, a good segue for us to get involved with the soft policies part of it. How do we do the policies, procedures? We've had many conversations with HR. Why does this technology stuff need to be part of HR? For a lot of organizations, that's just an understood. For us, it isn't. So we're having to push to get them to acknowledge that just because it's got technology in the conversation doesn't mean it's an IT thing. Some of these things have got to be an organizational thing. So we do have a little bit of pushback on how do we make this part of regular hiring, regular acceptable use. We still today have our acceptable use policy. You get hired, you sign that, 10 years later, that's the only thing you ever sign. So we don't have a renewal process. So that's why when Chad came and offered to do this share, it was a perfect fit because we needed to be doing this anyway. And this gave me something I can go to management and say, this is something we can build on, but how do we make it part of our organization? So, the real short version is all the managers and division heads have gone through the security human piece and have accepted it. But the next step now, which is what we're working on now, is how do we make this part of a policy? What do we do? Like Chad had talked about, he's going in quarters or yearly, whichever. We don't have that policy yet, but that's where the conversation is at. So I'm curious to hear from you all. How have you done this? How have you taken a technology thing and made it into an organizational part of your organizational SOP? But that's where we're at. We're getting started. That's basically the best thing I can say, as opposed to what Wade's doing in a lot of larger organizations. It's an understood. And say, for us it isn't. So we're still trying to work through that. But Chris?
Well, since you've posed that question, is there anybody in the room that would like to speak to that or comment on what Owen is asking about?
Have you made the policy? Have you created it?
I've sat down and I've got some templates that I've talked about as far as like doing a yearly renewal, that kind of thing. Is that what you're asking?
Well, the policy, yeah, when just the policy, the high-end part first, and then have you asked for it to be approved?
All right, and that's
the next step.
Right.
Once it's approved, then you can do your procedures, and then your forms, which
that's
can stay
part of
annual.
The issue though is, how do we get acceptance that that needs to be part of the city's policy as opposed to an IT thing? I mean, example, we shouldn't, all of us in the room that are in technology should not be doing HR stuff. It shouldn't be our process or our responsibility to say, you've got a person over here that's doing stuff on their computer all day long that they shouldn't be doing. That isn't our role. It shouldn't be, I don't think. But how do you get past that to realize that, this should be the management role?
Hey Owen, I got a perfect example for you. Wait till one of your HR people get a phishing email. That's an excellent driving force. That's exactly what was the driving force for our stuff. I mean, that's a negative way to look at it, but that was an excellent driving force. Was we got somebody that clicked on the wrong thing, and they were expecting something legitimate, and got something that was not legitimate, clicked on it, and the game kind of was called at that point. But yeah, we had conversations around the security awareness training, and much like yourself, how to implement that and get that ball rolling and get it going. And again, talk to Joel; he can give you more details. But that was our situation.
So do you have a policy in place now?
No.
Okay. That's first place to start. And what we do is part of our employee rules and regulations that each employee acknowledges each year. And whether they read it or not.
But part of yours is to have that renewal each year.
Absolutely.
And that is
critical.
standard.
Because that's the hammer.
Is that standard?
That's the hammer.
But that's one of the things I'm up against. Okay, they get it when they're hired. Why do they need to do it each year?
Well, we renew because we changed, bylaws of the organization. In fact, that's what it is. It's changed and modified enough over the year. 15, 16 years ago, we weren't worried about Facebook and social media and things like that. Today we are. Worried about phishing. People are phishing. And so, that's a different conversation 15, 16 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And, who knows what's going to be next year, but you have to kind of, it has to be renewed. The other thing we do is, because ours has grown so big, I'll share it. But we also have an administrative guideline that comes out of more of policies. But that's a little more invisible. I'm not such a big fan of that. One of those town manager or CEO type mandates that comes down and just kind of stays on the shelf somewhere. But that's just the other thing I do is I go to staff meetings. And so I have what I call my technology clock, and 100% is security covered.
Yeah, to piggyback on what you're saying, I did the same. One of the ways to kind of pave the road is to start early with your conversations and department head meetings, staff meetings. And I mean, I didn't want it to be demagoguery or scare tactics, but one of the things I would do is describe a recent event that happened by somebody clicking on an email and tell them what the damage was. Tell them, look, as it stands today, the cost per record of loss is anywhere between $150 to $200 per record. That could literally take away from the county what the value of this facility is right here. In one click of an email, we could lose $10 million. I mean, so it kind of wakes them up a little bit and kind of jolts them because they get into a groove in their position, and security is a side item. And and we all do the same as well. And sometimes it just kind of takes you to force feed it to them and kind of paint a picture. But it's a whole different world. A lot of people think that security is something you do or something that IT does, but as you all know, it's a mindset, and you got to put that education into effect to get them and convince them to believe that it is a mindset. It's not something you just do.
And to piggyback on that too as well, at Wake County, talking about what you guys said in the back, sometimes it takes a negative catalyst to get change, and we try to be as proactive as possible. So for your organizations that maybe have a tough sale to senior management, county manager's office, commissioners, whoever you have to deal with, you could do what we did, reach out to an audit for the smaller organizations that can't afford an audit. I was just talking to David Caraway, he's IT director for Washington, and so you can't imagine he's got a low budget for a consultant to come in and do an audit. But he partnered with, I think, either both the county or some other agency, and he was able to get it significantly reduced. And those findings that come out of that audit have some merit, and you can put those forward to your decision makers and say, I can't say it, but I told you so. So.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, and the other thing is, when you're starting out looking at trying to develop a security awareness program to begin with, the first thing you need to do is sit back and think, what is my goal? Is my goal, I need to be compliant with PCI and HIPAA, which if you're dealing with anything related to, healthcare information, for us in the county, human services makes up almost 60% of our organization if you look at the total number of users. And that is a huge deal for us. So we have to focus on, okay, what are the requirements that we have to cover for HIPAA? Well, if you're going to cover 60% of the organization, why not cover the other 40%? Well, then you look at other regulations out there for law enforcement. You've got CJIS requirements. Okay, so now you've taken another very large chunk of our organization. So you're up to, let's say, 75% of the population is now covered because you have a requirement from these various regulations. Why would you not carry that forward and cover the remaining 25%? So you really have to start looking at what is your goal. Do you just have a desire to make your users more aware of what's going on in their environment? Or is your goal compliance with regulation or fear of fines, fear of issues?
Do you have subject matter experts in those departments developing your content for you or with you?
So what we have been doing up to this point, I'll put it this way, we start with canned information. So we'll start with, in our case, Inspired Learning has a number of different courses that are geared toward PCI, HIPAA, those types of things. And what we've done is we've taken that core content and then done modifications to make it specific to Wake County. So you can go out and look at a number of different training vendors out there. They have off-the-shelf courses you can purchase. You can go through the computer-based training. And at some point it's going to say, if there's an event, you need to contact the appropriate department. How many users know who's the appropriate department? Who am I supposed to call? Do I call my boss? Do I call help desk? Is there somewhere to report an incident? And that's the types of things that we went through and actually did the customization based on. So it's not, there is no question for the end user after you've gone through training. I know exactly who I'm supposed to call. Here's the phone number. Here's the email address. Here's where I can find that information should I forget this specifically. So, I mean, it's not that you have to have true subject matter experts or that you have to have legitimate trainers within each of those parts of the organization. There are tons of off-the-shelf courses that you can use. It's just a matter of whether you choose to do any customization so that it's truly specific for your organization. And we decided that's probably the best approach for us because of the large user base. I mean, we're looking at close to 5,000 users that we're having to cover in our different varieties of training. So we wanted to be as clear as possible who to contact when you have an issue, because the more time you waste when there is an issue, the worse it gets. But I mean, going back to what I was talking about at the beginning, having that goal in mind. So if you're trying to get buy-in from the rest of the organization, one, the quickest, easiest way is we've got a regulation that states we have to do this. Doesn't state how. I mean, they're all very vague. It's just the requirement is you must have a security awareness program. Well, that could be anything from going to staff meetings and talking about security. It could be doing town hall type meetings with all of your population and doing 10 minutes on security topics. All great ways to get information out there. But if you don't have support from other areas within the organization, and this is something that we're just now getting to the point where we're resolving. So you can write that policy and say where it states, you've got to cover this training once per year, once per quarter. That's all well and good. What are the consequences if you don't? Because with that policy coming just from IT, okay, what are you going to do to me? You can't fire me. So you have to have that buy-in from HR especially. There has to be some level of compliance that is checked and monitored through HR, and you've got to have the support, in our case, of the county manager's office to actually put some legitimate consequences behind that. And so one of the things that we're actually starting to roll out over the next 2 to 3 months is actually, if you have not completed that security awareness training within the first 30 days of being hired, your network account is shut off. Now, that sounds great when we're talking about, okay, our users are going to be forced to be trained. But now stop and think about the overhead that's going to create, because now you're going to have HR saying, okay, here's the list this week of the users that haven't completed the security awareness program, shut off their network account. So this goes to the help desk, your Active Directory team, they start disabling accounts. Now you have users and their supervisors that are screaming because they can't do any of their work. And why are you shutting off their account? I need them to do this, 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 this. You're causing my department to be unproductive. Okay, true. But do you want them to do their job securely, especially if you're talking about someone in human services that's dealing with, personal health information, or that's dealing with, child welfare information? If they don't have a good concept of what it is they're trying to secure, do you really want them doing that much work to begin with? Beyond that, okay, so now you have to come to some sort of agreement. In order for them to take the training, they're going to have to be able to log into a PC. So that's now, let's say, 2 tickets that have gone to your help desk for your support staff. Disable the account to get the attention, enable the account so they can take the training. And so now how much overhead, how much time have you wasted within your IT department just trying to be compliant with that policy? So it's a very fine line of trying to set the policy and actually have enough teeth behind it so that there are consequences.
I was just going to comment. I'll reiterate exactly what she said. In Davidson County, we did that very thing. We had buy-in from HR because of the situation. And the county manager's office, and they totally were okay with the concept of if they get locked out, they were told. If they're being unproductive now, they were told. They were told to complete it in the 30 days or 90 days. And by having that buy-in, that makes a huge difference. And we provide, so we use Dell SecureWorks. So it's web hosted. We do get to customize some of the content so they know who to contact, much like you guys. But they don't have to log in. So all we have to do is disable their account. We're done. Until we get the notification that they have completed their certification and they have passed with the appropriate level of percentage of the test that we require. And then, flip the switch, it's back on.
So, yeah, as the guy that ran the platform before Lisa came, it's frustrating one way or the other because she's making some huge enhancements and some huge commitments with HR. We had a policy, but it was weak, as she was saying, it was very weak. And so we're actually putting some teeth in it now because as an IT administrator, you run the report every month. You've got all these folks that haven't had the training. You send them email after email, you call them on the phone, email their supervisor. You might get a little bit of compliance out of all that, say 25%. And it's just people are busy, people don't want to email you folks. So I don't know. The return on investment may be a little bit more rewarding to, you start cutting half a dozen people's email accounts off, network accounts off, the word of travel.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And we wrestle with that same challenge as well at Stanley, and ultimately we don't have quite as much teeth. We're a very small shop and can't deal with the health tickets that much either. But what we did is it's going to be in your employee evaluation, your merit calculation at the end of the year. If you didn't complete the security training, you're going to get hit in the pocketbook.
Yep. I would go so far as to say not only the employee, but if you can get your manager to agree to it, put that same requirement into a director level for their yearly review, and you would want to see 100% compliance, and anything less than 100%, they get dinged. And if you can get them to agree to that, then yeah, you probably won't have too many folks that miss that deadline at that point.
I can honestly say within the first, because ours is a yearly renewal at the beginning of the budget year. So I can say we see the report go from obviously 0% on the first day to within the first week, 90% completed. And it sits there probably right up until the time is about to run out when we have the 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 people that haven't completed it, that, get in the site, log in, complete it, and get it done. That's it. Worst part is I guess the folks that are on irregular shifts, that's the ones I think we have to worry about the most.
Now, another challenge that, and Robert can talk circles around this one, but one of the challenges that we faced when we started looking at, going with a hosted provider, one of the big things you have to take into consideration is how are you going to manage your users? And if you're looking at, 500 users, that's enough of a challenge. If you're looking at 5,000 users, if you don't use some sort of synchronization between, your environment, so whether it's Active Directory or some other LDAP synchronization to keep track of your users, you're going to spend a majority of your time just trying to do adds, moves, and changes, just to try to keep the population current so that when you're doing your reports and you're showing here's our compliance level, you're not being thrown off because you've got somebody that retired 2 years ago and is still in the system, with training registered and nothing showing up. And we have looked at a number of different ways to tackle this and keep running into additional challenges. So it's great that we now have the buy-in and support from HR, and as we're transitioning over to a different learning management system, we'll actually have the ability to do some automated registration. But how many people have temporary workers or contractors? Yeah, so what do you do with it?
Well, that's a good question too. Anybody that's not full-time, if they're going to access your network, you would think that you would want to run them through the same training. You may even have volunteers that would need to go through that same training. So there's another layer of administration that you have to go through. But I would think anybody that touches your network should be required to go through that.
Yeah, and that's actually perfectly timed because Board of Elections is probably the best example I can give you. And with Board of Elections in Wake County, they have over 1,000 volunteers that are working with them throughout the course of the election activities. And if you're not living under a rock and have actually turned the news on in the last, 2 months, you've probably heard something about the elections being rigged, security of voting equipment, and all of that. So if you think, as a county, we're going to have 1,000 volunteers that are out working in polling places, operating equipment that belongs to Wake County and that is tied to the election, would you not want to have them trained at least a little?
We ran into that as well, and what we did, and it's a little bit cumbersome, but when the poll workers came in to do their training, they all sat down in a room, and the elections lady got a projector out and displayed the security awareness training on there, and before they left, they had to sign a form saying that they did it. So it was just one user account. Granted, that throws off your metrics if you're going to run reports out of the system. So it kind of lets that load and shifts it somewhere else. It doesn't really get rid of it, but that was just a solution that we came up with at the time.
So piggybacking on something Lisa said a minute ago, I can't emphasize enough for you guys if you decide to shop out solutions. Make sure you got a tight LDAP in place. We do not. Our directory is in fact very smooth. We're trying our best to get off of it. We're making some headway. It will soon be AD, but we had LDAP that didn't have populated fields. They had reverse fields. I had so many manual processes each month. I mean, the overhead is 12 plus hours. So I couldn't emphasize that enough. And also try to envision what you need now and what you need in the future. The tool we use now is Inspired Learning. It's pretty good, but it's pretty basic, and we're actually transitioning over to Cornerstone, and we're going to partner with other departments in the county, such as GSA, Human Resources, etc., to put on other types of trainings besides HIPAA compliance and security awareness.
And going back to the discussion earlier with the policy, and this is actually something nice with Cornerstone, and I think with a number of different learning management systems, you'll have an opportunity to do this, but you can actually build in Cornerstone speak, they consider it a curriculum, which means you have to go through the training piece, you have to go through the review of the policy, and do the sign off at the end. So if you're looking at an easy way for doing your renewal of your acceptable use policy and having that sign off on a regular basis, tie it right in with the training itself, and then you have a legitimate electronic signature that will hold up should you need to use that, as opposed to passing out, employee handbooks and having to collect sheets of paper that are signed individually, put those in the employee files. And of course, we're all IT, so what's HR going to do next? Document management system, somewhere to put that stuff, so if you can keep it from becoming paper to begin with, you're already a step ahead of what they're going to be asking you to do in the future.
Well, I'll add to your comment there on the acceptable use. So one thing we've done, and I know this has been on listserv, is at logon. So our acceptable use is that click OK at logon, and obviously that gets tracked through any type of logs that you logged on. So if you logged on, you had to have clicked OK to get to your sign-in screen to get in. So you've accepted it every time you turn the computer on.
How long is your acceptable use?
It's not that long. It's like 4 pretty decent sentences. I mean, it takes up about that much on the screen.
Okay.
It's not very large. I can't remember the context, but
That was one of the first things I did starting was do that at login.
Yeah.
But you don't have any of the detail of, like you're saying, each year there's going to be changes. So I mean, when they log in, they see that screen. Maybe somebody reads it the first time.
I doubt they did.
There's no way to communicate changes or what systems are changing. So that's where you do need to have a bigger version of it, more formal version of it.
We want you to come by our policies. There's no policies that we change.
But hey, we did have to actually add an addendum to it for a select group of folks, like you said, for the Health and Human Services folks. So they get our base one, and then plugged into that, they get all the additional stuff that they have to comply by. So that's a pretty lengthy one, but that they see. But
I mean, that's definitely a good way to start. And I mean, it's just like handing out the acceptable use policy and asking somebody to sign. Even with the prompt at login, you still can't guarantee they've actually read it.
Oh, no.
You can't guarantee that they read it and understood it. All you can guarantee is they saw it.
Right. You put it in front of them.
Paper, you guarantee they signed it. Aside from that, I mean, so you can use that as a method as long as you can keep it short enough. But after the first time they see it, I mean, for anybody that's doing it, can you tell me what yours says?
Just to shift gears here for a second, we've talked a little bit about kind of just keeping track of who has gone through the program and making sure that everybody has had the opportunity to get this training. How do you measure effectiveness of the program? Have you figured out a way to tell that by having this training, these things aren't happening, as opposed to if you didn't have it, these things would happen? Kind of like proving a negative, I guess. But.
Yeah, so this is a difficult part, and I'm going to give you the theoretical version because I was not at Wade County when we started doing the security awareness training. But in theory, before you ever start a security awareness program, you need to have some sort of baseline metric to work with. But then if anybody's done any studies on metrics, you'll know that they're all useless. Because if you started a program 4 years ago and your metric was the number of phishing emails, okay, well in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't as big an issue 4 years ago as it is today, where you may have users that are receiving 3 or 4 a day, as opposed to, you may get one, every other month or so. So that metric is going to change. So you have to have some method for keeping your baseline intact. So we've looked at other metrics like, number of security incidents. That's another good thought, but what do you consider a security incident? And do you have a method for separating your security incidents being tracked as, user responsibility versus anything else? So that you could say, okay, at this point before we started the program, we had X number of security incidents that were related to user behavior. So even that becomes a difficult task. I guess the way I have approached it at this point is not really to try to put a metric behind it, but to look at repeat offenders. Because phishing is something that you're going to see day in and day out. It's not going to stop. It's not really going to get any better. Do you have the same people that even though they've been through the training, they've had training after the last event they were involved in, do they continue to do the same thing over and over? Which is a very easy way to determine your program is not effective. So So it's kind of hard to prove that it really is effective, not too difficult to prove that it's not. And this is where we're really starting to try to put more teeth and more into it than just focusing on that computer-based training aspect. Because if you look at the number of phishing attempts, then we just recently did an assessment, and part of that we did a phishing test. And so you would expect that the percentages for your users would start to get better over time. This is the embarrassing part. So for that phishing test, and we did 2 separate campaigns. So since we're a Lotus Notes shop, we hit a number of our more astute users with, you know, a notes upgrade information. So click here, we need to upgrade your client, blah, 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 which is something that the sad thing is IT shops tend to do. You send out an email button, click here, no, it's safe, it's off, really click here. But don't click on any other buttons or anything else in an email. So we sent out that to our more astute users that tend to be able to pick up on phishing campaigns. That one, not so bad. The second one, now consider this is going to a county-issued email account. Your Amazon order, there's an issue with your Amazon order. It was due to ship today and is not going to ship until a week from now. You know, log in to check the status of your order. 1, why are you ordering anything from Amazon using the government-issued account unless you're ordering it for the business of the county in our case? 2, if you didn't order anything from Amazon, why are you going to log in to see what's happened to your order? Do you think Amazon's really going to give you an iPad or that you want something? No. With that campaign, 75% of the users we sent it to opened the email. Okay. So they were curious enough to open it. 63% of them clicked on the link. 35% gave up their credentials. So if that doesn't scream, we have got to, yeah, I'll throw myself on the sword for that one. So yeah, if that doesn't scream, we've got to do better. Just, you know, your normal computer-based training just doesn't cut it. You've got to get in front of your users. And so, and this actually came up in the business meeting, and I'm glad to see that this is starting to become a little bit more of a topic. A few months ago, we actually went out to IBM and were actually talking with them and their innovation program about serious gaming. And so taking our security awareness training and turning it into a game, making it entertaining for end users, turning it into a competition to where, you know, whoever ends up with the most points at the end of a month, the end of a quarter, okay, we give something away. We'll give you an iPad if you click here. But I mean, that seems to be the, you know, the latest and greatest approach to trying to get people interested. I mean, if anybody had to deal with users walking around playing Pokemon Go, I mean, to me, I'm just floored as to why somebody would be that enamored by a game like that. But the fact that it catches that much attention and it draws that many people in. Imagine taking your security awareness program, sending them around your offices, trying to find issues. Do you think people would do it? They might actually learn something from it.
And that's something Maurice, if you were in the business meeting earlier, mentioned that Maurice and Shannon at School of Government are also working on that. And I think they said they're going to have some, potentially have some classes on that. So
yeah, so if you have an opportunity to get involved in that, it's still, a lot of it is still very abstract, and when you're trying to pin it down to specific cases like security awareness training, if you're like us, you're going to struggle a little bit up front trying to come up with some ways to do it without it just being completely cheesy, and you don't want to, you know, yeah, and dry. But you don't want your end users to think, all right, now my IT department is treating me like a 5-year-old and giving me this game. But sadly enough, there's plenty of them that are out there playing Pokemon Go, so they do actually like that type of thing. But I mean, you have to keep it appropriate for the organization.
And I couldn't agree more with Lisa as far as the conversations around it. You know, it's a lot more than just pushing out a video in front of somebody. You got to change the mindset that drives the behavior. You know, everybody thinks they're in a safe zone on that computer. You know, everybody behaves different when they walk down a dark alley at night as opposed to walking down a bright lit street in the middle of the day. They think they're walking down a bright lit street in the middle of the day when they're on that computer, when they're not. You know, they're walking down that dark alley, and they've got to switch their mindset over to the fact that they're in that reality. And that's what you got to drive. I mean, you can't just treat it simply. You got to treat it disease. So the core of it is that mindset. And the conversations about it are so important at your department head meetings, at your staff meetings. And, you know, let them know the world that they're living in. I mean, you know, because they have no idea. They're abstracted from it. They sit down, they do their role, their job. They're focused on that. They have no idea, you know, their tunnel vision. They don't know what's right outside that tunnel, what's lurking there. And so it's about changing that mindset. That's so important. And those conversations about it are so important.
That's one thing I'm saying. You know, we all try very hard to make our day-to-day job easy. Everything we do is try to make it a few seconds faster to log in or whatever. But we are insulating people from what reality is. And you know, we all get the phone calls, whatever. My machine at home does this. How do you fix it? Well, they're worried about that. They'll worry about that. But when they sit down at their machine at the desk, they don't worry about anything. They just assume you've taken care of it all. Well, that's a difference too. That we've got to make sure, just as an industry, I think we've got to get people to realize that just because you're sitting on your computer at work doesn't just mean that everything is clean, everything's protected. The same bad guys that are hitting you at home are hitting you at work. And you've got to understand that.
And one thing I really drove to in those meetings is, look guys, your data's in this system too. If we get hacked, you guys are going to have to go on credit monitoring. You guys are going to have to live through the hell that it's going to be to come around and do this. So this isn't just somebody else's data you're dealing with. All you guys are taxpayers in our county. Your information is in this system, you know. So it's not just an abstract idea. You're protecting your own data as well. And I think that point really got drove home and sunk in a little bit when I would have those conversations in the department head meetings. I think it really became clear to them that, you know, wow, you know, what I do here at work can have a major impact on me at home and my finances.
Third question.
How do you address the different levels of competency when you've got the entire range from someone who thinks their laptop, when they connect it to their dock, is their desktop, and they've got two computers, to the ones that are power users versus the ones who think they're IT pros? You've got the entire gamut of users there. How do you address the difference in the levels?
So that is always going to be a challenge. We try to aim for, let's say, middle of the road when we're looking at the training materials. And again, we make some base assumptions on the skill set of the users that are going to be taking it, and try to focus more so on, okay, let's not worry about trying to figure out, you know, if I turn my monitor on and off, is that turning my computer on and off? You know, because we have those types of users as well. But email is email, regardless of what it's on. So you kind of have to pick your battles and pick the areas where you see the most issues, where's the biggest risk.
I would say that's one of those things too that you've got to push back on your managers. If their manager wants them to have an email account, then they need to hire somebody that's capable of using an email account. It isn't our job to make sure that their employee can do their job. That's what they're hiring. You know, they need to make that part of the hiring process too.
And we got time. Time for one more question up front.
Good. Here's another, I guess, a line of thought. What about the bring your own device people? The ones that bring their flash drives, the ones that bring, you know, they want their telephones on the network, they have it just in their you know, we've users who legitimately need laptops and computers. Now, some of the county, the NCGLISA my laptop that I just bought is the latest and the greatest, and I want to be able to use it for work. And so you have all these outside devices now wanting into your network. How do you address that on your security policy?
So there's a couple ways to do it. You can attack it through policy, first and foremost, technology second, but then the technology piece gets expensive. I can point you to some guys down in the hall down here that would be happy to talk to you about detecting unapproved devices on your network and quarantining and blocking those so they can't. So first and foremost, policy. And I want to say, don't make it easy for them. So, and this goes back to your networking teams and the ones that are focused on the network configurations. Don't leave ports active if there's nothing physically plugged into it. Don't have a wide open guest wireless or worse, employee wireless. I mean, have rules in place. And from a technology perspective, there's wireless. We do bring your own device in Wake County as well. And if you want to get your personal device onto the county network, we're using the Cisco ICE platform. So in order for your personal phone to be allowed, it has to go through a manager's approval that states, yes, you have business need to have this and you're approved for BYOD. And you have to give them your MAC address so that they can actually configure that. And that's the only way you're getting any access to it. But I mean, consumerization of IT is it's just going to make that worse. We actually had this conversation. Just the fact that our laptops are typically on a 4-year replacement cycle. Well, everybody wants a tablet, so they're going to go to their supervisor. Somehow it's going to end up with the county manager. They're going to call and say, hey, so-and-so says they need a tablet to do their job. It'd be nice. I mean, there's a lot of things I'd like to have, but it doesn't mean I need them.
I would say to piggyback on what she's saying, you also have to know what you're trying to protect. Classified data. We all have pretty much similar business models. So we're fairly open. It's not quite as open as an academic, but close. So I would love to lock things more down like the DoD. It's just not practical. It's just not. So you have to know what you're protecting. We do have some environments in Wake County that are really locked, where you can't even move an icon on the desktop, and they're VLAN'd off, they're cross VLAN traffic. The USB ports are locked, so you can't stick the drive over the drive. Those are generally handling large volumes of money or something like that. So you just kind of have to know your target, your focus, and all of this.
So a lot of times I get that pushback when I suggest a security issue. Well, it's all public data anyway. All of it is public data.
There's less and less that's public.
And because of compliance issues, PCI or HIPAA, a lot of that drives what you have to do is not an option.
Yeah, I mean,
That'll force what you have to do.
yeah, when you're talking with, your finance departments and they're thinking, they see dollar signs in their head. If we do BYOD, that means I don't have to put aside budget for cell phones, I don't have to put aside budget for laptops, for this, for that. Oh, this is great. Let everybody go buy their own stuff, bring it in and do the work for us. But they're not keeping track of, okay, you've got this nice new laptop that you went out and purchased on your own, I don't know if you got a warranty or not, what happens when you drop it? Are you going to call the IT department and go fix this? Because we're going to look at you and go, don't mind.
The other thing is, Dave, that ends up on that equipment whenever you leave. And our DSS department has a turnover rate. A lot of times I don't even see the faces before they're active.
Yeah, and we do have certain departments that we will not allow BYOD. And right now our BYOD program is just mobile phones. So for those types of positions, you are required to carry a county phone. And we're using an MDM platform, so at the touch of a hat, I mean, we're going to wipe that device.
We carry the same issues. we just see it on a larger scale. I mean, several years ago, over 5 years ago, we issued out almost 500 encrypted flash drives. 400. So, I mean, it's just, we do in the same time.
Well, folks, I think we're at the end of the time and maybe a few minutes after. So, Robert, Lisa, Owen, and Chad, we thank you for your time and we thank the audience for all your good questions.